All right, we're back, and this time it's agree or disagree. This week on a returning Falls Count Anywhere.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. I hope you are rested and recovered. This is our first Falls Count Anywhere return 2024. I am very excited because I do not have to talk about the fall of Vince McMahon.
Oh my God.
Holy mother of God. I rolled up my sleeves. I dug into the Janelle Grant thing. Please check it out if you haven't. It's a 13-part series. We gave Matt a break. Well-deserved, if you ask me. But now we are back. It is the end of February. He's recovered. I'm recovered. And I thought we should jump right back into FCA with some fun stuff. I saw, even more so than usual, I mean, the internet is filled with a bunch of BS out there. And we get to talk about a ton of BS on our show. But there are some things that are just too nasty for us to wade through. And they're very speculative, and I think that they're a little bit more interesting. So I thought maybe I would collect up, let's say, a half dozen or so of those items, and we could talk about them. I thought agree or disagree would be a great way to do it. So I'm going to start by reading a tweet, reading a statement, talking about a post, whatever it happens to be. I'm going to read it to you. You're going to tell me whether you agree or disagree or why, and maybe we'd have something to talk about on top of it. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, let's start from the top. I have a tweet here which we will show from our favorite, JD from New York, our favorite guy in the entire world. And I gotta get your thoughts on it because this basically flies directly in the face of everything that we do. But maybe you agree with him. This is the quote. Quote, "If you sit there and time every match, calculating every minute and every second of a wrestling show to compare it to another company, you deserve to be strapped in a chair and forced to watch a 24-hour loop of great Khali matches."
Don't threaten me with a good time.
Great Khali matches.
Agree
or disagree?
I'm gonna have to disagree.
Why?
I mean, everyone watches wrestling differently. Everyone enjoys different aspects of it. I mean, we joke around with Dan all the time. Well, we bust on him. Let's be serious about how he likes the sports entertainment and we like the wrestling. But I mean, specifically breaking down the matches and stuff. I mean, that makes it feel more like a sporting event. And you got time in football and whatever else, you know, real sports, which I know nothing about. But it makes it more interesting to break down a match and see, you know, how long was the heat on this match? How long for the hot tag? Or how much did the women wrestle this week compared to last week? I mean, it just makes it more interesting, makes it more fun.
Would you say, you know, that's an aspect of the IWC, the internet wrestling community that I think kind of makes it weird. You know, I would think that would be something that would sort of unite the two sides. JD, typically, in my experience, is a guy that focuses much more on story, on concept. He doesn't like to get into the nitty-gritty of T-shirt sales and ticket sales and that kind of stuff. He's more interested in the quality of exactly what's going on the screen. But to me, this is something that I would think would unite the two factions. If you're a sports entertainment guy, then you want to see more sport. And if you are a wrestling guy, you want to see how this aligns with the tradition that has come before.
Right.
So, but I'm not seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of, it's not even fair to call it tribalism, because what tribe do you belong to? It sounds more like an investment gap. It's like if you are really interested in the product, regardless of where you fall on the professional wrestling or the sports entertainment side of it, then yeah, you're interested in that. But if you're a casual user or whatever, you just see those people as, like, I don't know, nerds or something like that.
Well, it definitely is.
Or I guess a mark would maybe be the more...
Right.
They kind of view it as more of you're a mark than...
Right.
I guess there's a sense of, I don't know, hoity-toityness associated with it.
I've had this conversation with people before. You can make anything you like into some sort of nerddom or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, anything you're passionate about can make you a geek for anything. So
it's a little disingenuous for a guy that literally makes his money talking about professional wrestling to be calling people out for taking careful notice and being detail-oriented in watching wrestling. I could never imagine Joe Buck, the famous baseball or football commentator, coming up and being like, "What do you mean you're counting sacks?" You know, like, come on, dude. Like, of course. Anyways, all right, moving on to topic number 2. This is just a straight statement, although I do have an interesting visual that I'm going to show here for you guys. There should be a women's intercontinental title. Agree or disagree?
I can partially agree with that. I mean, we've talked about before how there are too many belts in most companies as it is, but then you look at AEW, and they do have that. The TBS Championship is basically the Women's Intercontinental Championship.
The titles all mirror each other, except
right.
There isn't a women's tag, right?
Not yet, no.
Yeah.
But there may be soon.
Yep.
But yeah, AEW has secondary women's titles, and it works for them. I don't see that. I mean, WWE could do that, but I don't see them doing that because, as it is, they don't put enough focus on the women. So yeah, I could agree with that. Absolutely. To flesh out a division more, you got to have the ones on top, and then you have the ones working up to the top. Historically, the Intercontinental Championship was always the stepping stone to the World Championship, so it makes sense.
You think that they're just not willing to invest the time that's required, and by time I mean air time.
I would say so, yeah.
Time in front of the camera to make that happen. If they were going to do that, who should be the inaugural champ on WWE side?
Oof. First one that popped in my head is Naomi, but I don't know if that would work or not. She is kind of like the workman of the women's division. I could see Naomi doing it.
I would think that you would want to put somebody in there with an extreme gimmick on either side, either major face or major heel. You wouldn't want to put a tweener.
You don't think you think she's a tweener?
I think she's a little bit, especially right now. I think she's a little bit of a tweener.
Okay.
Essentially, I mean, she's only been back.
Disagree,
right?
but all right.
But you think?
I think she's hard babyface right now.
I think she's definitely babyface, but they haven't had her doing anything. Like she hasn't gone against
she doesn't
anybody.
have a storyline.
There's no contrast to her against anybody else. Yeah, okay, you put her in a feud with someone like Charlotte Flair or something, and yeah, you've got some contrast there that you could put her over on. But I would think whoever you want it to go to is going to be somebody, that's going to be all of something, whatever that is. There's not a lot of heels in the women's division right now, and they're very two-dimensional. It's like Nia Jax or something like that. It's a very two-dimensional take on it. Would you do a tourney or a tournament of some sort? Or
I
some
always
sort of
like
qualifier?
tournaments, yeah.
Or would they just give the belt? You think they should just do it? They got a bad history with tournaments, though. They'd have to find a new way to do it.
Yeah, well, like the Continental Classic in AEW, the round robin type of tournament, those always...
They handled it very well.
Yeah,
over multiple weeks.
very good.
WWE doesn't have the patience, at least hasn't had the
that's
patience
the problem.
in the past to do that.
They would just do a one elimination type tournament like they've done for the UK title and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they tried to burn some time on a PLE or something to make it happen. All right, cool. Next topic number 3. This is the statement. You tell me whether you agree or disagree. Non-roster talent gets too much airtime on AEW.
Non-roster talent, so like bringing in Japan or CMLL guys.
So yeah, specifically, I saw the Jericho Atlantis Jr. match from Dynamite.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think they need to focus more on their in-house talent and do more stories with them.
Does that, because obviously it's typically talent that's being brought over from the Lucha side or from the Japan side, does that alienate the local audience that they're playing to?
Bringing them in alienate the local audience?
Bringing in guys that can't speak English, that don't cut promos, that can't, there's no reason to know who they are. I mean, who's this Atlantis Jr. guy? We're never going to see him again.
Last week on Dynamite, who in Huntsville, Alabama knows who Atlantis is?
And frankly, who is what? I mean, what percentage of the 800,000 people that watched Dynamite that week knew who Atlantis 5%? 10%?
As far as AEW, historically, they appeal to the hardcore audience, so more people do
100%
watch that type of stuff.
Because it would be zero on WWE.
Right. I think if they're going to bring those guys in, they need to do better telling the story, kind of like they did with Jericho, how he wrestled his father, he learned from his father, and build a story like that. Then it makes sense. But just bringing in the other luchadors and just throw them into a story with AEW guys, it didn't really work that
They
well.
get totally swallowed up by the story.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
outshined.
AEW needs to focus more on their in-house guys, for sure.
They don't know English well. They can't cut a promo very well. Again, none of this being their fault. It's just the nature of the business.
Right.
Or you sign them in for a 5-match series over 12 months or something that can actually build to something that you can step into and out of.
Or,
You know.
put them in a match with the in-house luchadors to do a special, lucha match type thing with Penta or with Phoenix or whoever they got. But
Yeah.
they need to focus on their in-house guys, for sure.
Doesn't seem like there's not a lot. It seems like there's not a lot of non-televised wrestling time period to play with, whereas there used to be a lot more dark shows, dark matches, stuff like that. Now there's 1 or 2 dark matches before Dynamite, and that's it. And you do the Rampage recording at the same time, so it's not like you're even getting the Rampage time in a different location.
Yep.
So yeah, you're kind of stuck on that front. All right. I'm going to read you this tweet from Wrestling Spotlight. I want you to tell me whether you agree or disagree. Here it is. It's a hashtag AEW pay-per-view weekend. That means 2 things. 1, insufferable twat waffles that only watch one company will say that they are unable to understand they're unable to understand the stories and they spent 0 time watching develop. We might know somebody like that. And 2, a reporter suddenly remembers something bad that someone in AEW did 6 years ago. Agree or disagree? Let's go with the first one. Insufferable twat waffles that only watch one company saying that they will be unable to understand the stories which they spent 0 time watching develop. That's probably the biggest criticism.
Yeah.
I'm saying stories in general, not necessarily twat waffles. But stories in general seems to be perennially the greatest criticism
Yep.
on them.
I will agree with that part, I think.
Is it limited to only twat waffles that only watch one company? I'm 3. I need 2 more to hit my 5 quota. So,
Twat waffle, twat waffle. To a degree, yeah. I think it is mostly, the ones who complain are mostly the ones who don't watch it regularly. I would think so.
it is a valid criticism, though.
Sure.
At
Yeah.
the same time, right?
Yeah, they've always struggled with story in general.
It's gotten better, though. This Tony Storm, Deanna Purrazzo line
Mm-hmm.
has got some legs underneath it.
Yep.
Multi-month. I mean, they are keying up a title change. Deanna deserves it.
Mind you, this is debuting after, or this video's coming out after the pay-per-view.
We'll show after. All right, what about the second one? A, quote, reporter suddenly remembers something bad that someone in AEW did 6 years ago.
That I'll disagree with. I mean, that's not a regular thing that happens.
That seems
And it's not limited to when a pay-per-view drops either.
it seems a little niche. But it does seem, and again, this is just my impression, I'm not going to have any real specific details here, but it is my impression that it does seem like every time something good happens to AEW, somebody tries to find the fly in the ointment.
Absolutely.
You
And
know
that's
what I
true
mean?
of anything.
I mean, and sometimes circumstances kind of do that, or like maybe the lack of control that Tony Khan has over the locker room does that. I'm thinking of All In last year and all the
Yep.
CM Punk stuff that occurred. But it does seem like, I don't know. I know so much more now about like the legal troubles of AEW stars, and it kind of leaks out in multiple. Like, how many stories have been written about Dax and his aggravated assault or whatever road rage incident or whatever it is have been written since in the last 6 months, let's say, since it happened or whatever, versus Liv Morgan getting arrested in Florida. It's
Right.
like night and day. Like the
Yeah.
two are treated very differently in my mind. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting a little conspiracy theory here, but that's where I'm at on it. All right. Last one. I promised it would be Sting related. I'm going to read this statement, and I want you to tell me whether you agree or disagree. This is the statement. If Sting versus Undertaker was done right, they'd still be talking about it to this day. The match that never happened, the dream match.
If they
never
did it
happened.
right,
If they did
Yeah.
it right, they'd still be talking about it to this day.
I agree with that.
That's a Sting quote.
Really?
Yep, Sting said that. If me versus Undertaker was done right, they'd still be talking about it to this day.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's, I mean, if not the match itself, definitely the feud they could have built, like, Shawn Michaels and Triple H, that type of a feud. That could, if they had done it right, they definitely could have.
What does that mean, done it right? Because these guys, you can't bill as heel or face. They're both tweeners.
Right.
There's no easy story to write here.
it would have to be just the presence of those two wrestlers finally coming to a head. They would just have to build that anticipation, build the tension until it finally pops.
You'd have to do it in 2015. Because way back in 2002, the legend isn't quite there. Remember, Taker's still going through his American Badass phase. I mean, that's when they would be in their prime physically to do it.
Yeah, maybe not 2015, but definitely like
2010.
He came back as the Dead Man in 2004, WrestleMania 20. So, yeah, 2005, 6, 7, after Sting's been at TNA for a few years. Yeah, somewhere in that range.
What would we lose from TNA if Sting left TNA in, let's say, 2008? Would we lose Main Event Mafia?
Maybe.
Yeah, we might lose Main Event.
Well, it was still Kurt Angle there, though.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So we'd lose a big piece of Main Event Mafia, but not the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would. You
know what? We lost is Joker Sting. We wouldn't have that.
That's true.
That was like 2010 or something.
But would that be worth it?
I like Joker Sting. I thought that was cool.
Okay, but would you like to see? I mean, do you think?
No, I wouldn't have traded. I would trade that.
I mean, do you think
versus Undertaker definitely
an epic WrestleMania match between them? I mean, would that? Let's assume it fulfills everything we wanted to. Would it be the biggest?
I don't know if I would do it at WrestleMania though, because then you would know Undertaker would win. I'd do it at a show. No, I'm not saying Sting would have to win. I'm saying do it at a show where you wouldn't know for sure.
Okay, SummerSlam or something like that. You do it at a big pay-per-view, but not the biggest.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think it would probably be the biggest match ever at almost any other show outside of WrestleMania. But
it definitely would have. Well, I don't know.
But it
if
might.
Definitely.
Would
it have been Sting's biggest match ever?
What would be bigger than Sting versus Undertaker?
I mean, people would say any of his matches against Flair or something would be...
You know, that's an interesting point. I mean, part of the mystique around it comes from the fact that...
It never happened.
Mm-hmm. And so once you do it, automatically it takes the sting out of it. Maybe. I don't know. Is that the right way to say it?
Taking the sting out of Sting?
Yeah, I don't know. Lord knows we wouldn't want to do that. So, all right. So those are our 5 agree to disagree. Sounds like you mostly agree on the part of it. Of the internet wrestling community. Sounds like you're in touch. Please let us know what you think below. I'm dying to know. Keep checking us out. Please tune in. Steve takes a chair. We don't want anybody to miss that.
Definitely not.
And I don't think it's unfair to call it the shot heard around the world because it is quite loud. So please be sure to check it out.
We'll see if he makes some more bets after this.
Keep watching. Keep pressing play. And we will keep wrestling with the business. See you next time.
I survived, didn't I?
We think.
Awesome.
Thank God we had that AI record your voice. Only takes 3 seconds now.